Good evening, I'm Paul Offodds, and it's time for your Royals postseason report. This was recorded the morning of September 22nd. As of this recording, no games have been completed for today. The Royals still possess the second wildcard, 4 games behind the Orioles, half a game ahead of the Twins, and a full game ahead of the first team out, the Tigers. As of this recording, here are your Kansas City Royals playoff odds. Baseball Reference, 69%. Baseball Prospectus, 82.4%, and Fangraphs, 75.8%. The Royals' magic number to clinch any playoff berth is 6. We now return you to your regularly scheduled Royals Rundown podcast.
Howdy, y'all. Welcome to the Royals Rundown podcast presented by RoyalsReview.com. I am Jacob Milham. Thank you very much, Paul, for getting us started this I want to say this morning, but I don't care when y'all are listening. Jeremy, it shouldn't really matter, right? This is, you can listen to this show at any time of day and enjoy it.
I think that if you listen to this show after midnight, you risk us turning from adorable little furry creatures into monstrous goblins. I think I heard that somewhere. I don't particularly want to be a monstrous goblin, but you know, if that's what the people want, I guess that's where we'll go.
All right, well, I'll take it. Well, hey, we are very excited to have a guest with us today, the editor over at RoyalsReview.com, the illustrious Max Rieper. Max, how we feel today, man?
The mood, the morale is not great. Maybe you guys brought me on to like change things up to get this team, to shake up the team a little bit, but I appreciate being on. I wish we were talking about a 6-game win streak instead of a 6-game losing streak.
Yeah, I think our real change of pace for guests on the podcast to try to get things going is we're going to have Slugger on, I think, and he's just not going to say a word. It's just going to be dead air when he's supposedly talking.
Just tell everyone, just so you know, Slugger is here.
Yes, Slugger is sitting here with us. But yes, thank you so much for joining us on Sunday morning, Max. Before we get too deep into it, if you're looking for a place to vent about the Royals, or if you're looking for a place to stay informed about the Royals, about the many fixes for this team, you can go find it over at RoyalsReview.com. The game threads, the game recaps, and the rumblings are just the tip of the iceberg over there for content. So go check out Royals Review. All right, folks, there's nothing really good to talk about with this team right now, right? Like the starting pitching has been very poor by their standards, I would say. The bullpen was not particularly great last night, but all in all, it's been the bats, right, Jeremy? Like that's kind of the big cloud.
So for those of you who aren't on Royals Review, I usually have the Saturday recaps, and I posted it in the middle of the 6th inning last night because I had enough. And at that point, the Royals had a runner in scoring position in every single inning and had scored none of them. They'd had a leadoff runner on in 3 innings out of the first 5 and had scored none of them. I don't even think a runner ever made it to third in the first 5 innings. We had a couple of doubles. We had some 1-out runners at second, and nobody ever made it to third base even. So it was a miserable hitting experience.
It was. And Max, just to give you some stats before we hear your take on it. So their last 28 games since August 23rd. So this is before the Vinny Pasquantino injury. This is before they added Tommy Pham and Yuli and Robbie Grossman. They were batting 186, 40 for 215 with runners in scoring position. And over their last 6 games, the losing streak, they are 8 for 52. Good for a 154 batting average. Max, this is just a problem up and down the lineup, right? Like this isn't just 1 or 2 guys. This is a whole team experience.
Yeah, I think everyone's focused on the runners in scoring position, and that certainly is a big problem. But like they're just not hitting well overall in all situations. I mean, they just aren't. There's no solo home runs. There's no guys hitting doubles to get on base. It's just they're just not hitting at all, and they're not. You could say, oh well, they're facing the gauntlet, against the top pitchers in baseball. No, they're facing Mason Black, who has an ERA over 7 for the Giants, who's making like his 8th major league start in his career. They're facing Landon Rope, a guy who was a reliever for a month, most of the year, and has just recently started. And they're playing like a Giants team that's, has some talented players, but has really underachieved this year and isn't playing very well for the most part. So it's I get running into the Tigers, but juggernaut a little bit the way they've been playing baseball, but there really is no excuse for the way they've been hitting all month, as you point out. It's not just this week. It's been a problem that has been an issue for a while that is kind of it's rearing its head in a major way this week, and we knew this was an offense that didn't have a lot of depth, and so if a guy like Salvi has a slump, and a guy like Vinny goes out with injury, suddenly you're kind of scrambling looking for like anyone else to step up, and no one has, which is really, I think, the most concerning thing.
Yeah, that's been the frustrating thing, I feel like, is these guys that we were hanging our hats on in June and July, like Freddie Fermin comes to mind.
Jay Melendez, Hunter Renfroe.
Yeah, like everyone is just slumping at the precisely wrong time. Go ahead.
Paul DeYoung got traded for it. Everyone's like, we got to sign him for next year, right? And now he's striking out in half of his at-bats and not getting on base at all.
Nope.
Or Tommy Pham. I was the biggest Tommy Pham advocate, and he played well for the first couple of weeks, and now this week he's like 4 for the last 40 with 15 strikeouts or something like that. He's gone in a funk where he looks like he's just totally doesn't have any command of the strike zone at all. So Freddie Fermin would be great if he stepped up, but like he's the backup catcher, like you don't expect him to. But like Hunter Renfroe is a guy you're paying serious money. MJ Melendez is a guy that you thought you were kind of counting on this season to step up, and every month we keep saying, oh, maybe he's turning the corner now, and he just never seems to turn the corner. So those are the guys that I think have been the biggest disappointments. Michael Garcia, I think you can put up there too, like a guy that showed some promise last year, and then this year you're like, okay, we'll see if he can kind of overcome his deficiencies and become a solid player. And he's been a big disappointment this year, I think, overall. So those are the guys that I think one or two of those guys needs to step up, and we haven't seen it at all.
And like that's the margin that they're dealing with. It's if one or two of these guys was even performing average, I don't think we would be having this conversation. If you go back and you look at since August 28th is the span I pulled up, 22 games, pretty healthy sample size. They've been outscored 89-70, and they're 7-15 in those games. Okay, but that's only a 19 run difference. But like that's the margin of error that we're dealing with right now. And unfortunately, I think that's why a lot of folks are panicking, is because you're not going to have a healthy margin of error in the postseason. And you obviously don't have it against even the San Francisco Giants, apparently. Thankfully, today, before we are recording this, we have an excellent pitching matchup on the schedule. Blake Snell going up against Seth Lugo. So I'm hopeful that the Royals can right the ship and give Lugo some run support. But right now, no matter how good the pitching is, the lineup just isn't going to back them up. Like that's how it feels, that's how it looks, and frankly, that's how it is. Jeremy, do you have any other thoughts over this skid?
I was just gonna say I have two things. First, that from the Pirates through the Tiger series, that 4 games, or no, not that 4 games. I had a stretch pulled up. Oh, it was over since September 16th.
Okay.
The Royals had gone 5-7, including the Giants game Friday night.
Okay.
Not yesterday's game. And they had a positive run differential over that span. So there is, like you point out, like if you go back to the arbitrary endpoints, you can go back to August 28th and it's like, oh, well, that's not good. But if you go back to just September 16th, you're like, oh, well, actually over this span, they've played really, really close and they haven't pulled it off. And the other thought I had was you pointed out the pitching matchup today. And my first thought was, oh no, Blake Snell. And then I was like, it doesn't matter. It really just doesn't. Maybe a better pitcher will help. Maybe they're struggling because they're playing good pitchers. It feels like watching the lineup this week that they've gotten hittable pitches and they've done nothing with them. So maybe less hittable pitches from a better pitcher will be, well, I don't know. I don't have any answers anymore.
No, like the perfect emblematic, at bat was, I think it was the 9th inning when Michael Massey came up against Camilo Doval of the Giants on Saturday night. And just got like a middle up fastball. And I don't know, it actually wasn't, I don't think it was that late in the game. It was earlier in the game. But he got a middle up fastball and hit it, it looked like it was gone. And it just went to the warning track. It's like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
He didn't even clear
worse than
100
that.
on the exit velocity on that one either. It was like 95. It was like, yeah, that pitch, that swing, you should have hit it harder and farther. What happened?
Yeah.
So I'm going to put you both on the spot with this, and whoever wants to answer it first can chime up. I tweeted out after Friday night's loss, like, hey, this is just a clubhouse issue. There's not a free agent to add. There's not a trade to be made. There's not a promotion that's going to fix this team. And I want to focus on that last part. Like, should the Royals be looking at adding one of these bats from Omaha? I mean, I hate to say it, Drew Waters, he's had 4 straight 3-hit games for the Omaha Storm Chasers. I mean, that's hard to ignore. Nelson Velasquez, the power has been back. He had like 3 home runs over 2 games with 10 RBIs in that span. Like, there are some performing bats in AAA. Should they look at adding a couple of new faces to the clubhouse, or should they just ride what they have?
I think my hesitation is that there is such a gap between AAA and the majors that just because you do well in AAA, like, who knows how you perform in the big leagues. But I mean, at this point, yeah, you have to try something. And I'm tired of seeing Garrett Hampson get at bats in key situations, and like we have no better options than that. Like, Velasquez, obviously his overall offensive numbers aren't good, but he can run into one and hit over the fence once in a while. Drew Waters, he's shown something at the big league level, so it's not like he'd be totally untested. So yeah, I kind of feel like those would be better bench options at this point. And look, we're talking about the margins here. It's not like you're going to add an impact player at this lineup, and really, like it's the other guys I mentioned that need to step up, like Renfroe and Melendez and Garcia. But like Saturday night when you're going to the bench, or you're turning to Garrett Hampson in a key situation and like hoping he comes through. It's like, well, that's not a great situation to be in.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm mostly with Max on that. I think I would push back even a little bit harder though, in that it also would be a move that reeks of desperation. And I feel like if the front office sends a signal of desperation to the offense, like, we don't think you guys can figure this out, so we're gonna throw stuff at the wall now. I think that is it's a lack of confidence in the existing players, and I don't think the margins, as Max was saying, the margins are very small there. I don't think it's worth sending that signal to the team at this point. I don't know that it again will make a difference. We've got 7 games left as we're recording this.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter what you do. The sample sizes are so small. Anything the Royals could sweep out, and it wouldn't surprise me. They could get swept out, and I mean, it would have surprised me to hear that a couple weeks ago. But right now, it doesn't feel all that surprising.
Yeah, that's
very Jacob, true. You mentioned the clubhouse earlier. Like, I've seen a lot of fans be like, "Oh, this team is too complacent." Like, I think Salvi had some comments in the star this week of like, we feel like we're going to make the playoffs. Like, it was like a kind of calm confidence. Yeah. And some fans took that as like complacency and want to see more like fire and brimstone, turning over tables, Q getting, kicking off dust and umpires kind of stuff. Yeah. Which I kind of think that's the panicky move. Like, that's when you start, unraveling a little bit. So I don't know. What do you guys think about? But at the same time, you don't want to be like complacent and be like, okay, well, we've got this wrapped up. Doesn't matter if we hit. Which I don't think that's their attitude. But what do you guys think about the, I guess, body language? I'm always loath to get into like body language and like what's going on in the clubhouse, which we have no idea because we're fans. But what do you guys think about the fire?
There's one of the things that people love to talk about, and that I've talked about a lot this year, is playoff experience. And have you been there before? And not in the sense of like, well, don't celebrate things because you've been there before, but like, don't panic because you've been there before. Salvi's been here before, right? He's been on a team that was, fighting for its playoff life. And there's just, I feel I'm with you in that it feels like kind of a panic move. You don't want guys being like, well, I don't know if we're going to make it. We just got to try real hard. You want guys who are like, yeah, we'll figure this out. We just got to take it one day at a time. We got to do our stuff, and we will figure this out, and we will get there. So I one of the things I keep hearing about Q, I've heard about Q the entire time he's been here, is people complaining that he doesn't yell at umpires enough and he doesn't fire up the team. And I'm like, if the team needs the manager to yell at umpires to fire them up, that's a team problem, not a manager problem. These guys are all professional athletes. They're plenty fired up to compete. They didn't get here because they've had a series of managers who were willing to go yell at umpires for them. They got here because they were talented and self-motivated. So that criticism always just kind of makes me shake my head.
I will say, because I found myself thinking the same thing about Q after Friday night's loss. I think it was. It's like, man, I was watching his post game presser. I was like, man, I just like give me something, man. Give me some sort of vim or vitriol, something. But at the end of the day, I think he's damned if he does it. I think he's damned if he doesn't do it, because I mean, what's that response going to tell the team? How is he going to voice that response? Is he going to be the one to throw Garrett Hampson under the bus? Is he going to, criticize a certain whole aspect of the team and draw and get some negative feedback from the people who matter the most, the team at this point? And I think even fans would have a negative reaction to that. So
and just to add on to that, I can think of times pretty much whenever I see a manager start kind of going to the press with his complaints about the team, because just because we're not seeing it in press conferences doesn't mean he's not talking to the team about it, by the way. But when a manager goes to the press like that, it always seems like, oh, that guy's about to get fired. Like when Tony Muser did his whole, we need guys who drink tequila, not milk and cookies or whatever. Like he got fired a couple weeks later. Pedro Grifol this year was like, if the White Sox lose this year, it's going to be because of the players. And then Rocco Baldelli, I think we were all after the Royals series a couple weeks ago when he was like, this unprofessional and I don't have anything else to say. We're all like, that doesn't sound like a positive thing for the manager in Minnesota. So just like, understand that we don't see everything, I think, and that we don't want to see everything, because once we've been saying kind of the desperation moves. Once a manager goes to the media with fire like that, that's a desperation move, and that doesn't bode well for how things are going internally that we can't see. That's a bad sign.
Max, anything to add on there?
No, just we don't know a lot of what's going on in there. I mean, he could be flipping over tables, and it's just not something we're going to see. So, it comes down to winning. If they win a couple games here in the final week and make the playoffs, we'll forget, how Quatraro's demeanor was the last couple of weeks of the season. But if they miss the playoffs, there's going to be a lot of scrutiny about every aspect of the last month of the season. So, I don't think it's a big deal. I don't think a player is not with a runner in scoring position. He's going to his behavior is affected by how angry his manager is or anything like that. But I think you can sense some kind of anxiety from the team right now. After the first couple games of the losing streak, it started to kind of, I think, build upon itself a little bit, where it's like, okay, we're not going to blow this thing, are we? And, when you start thinking that, like, it starts, snowballing a little bit. So hopefully, I think it only takes like one or two wins to get out of that mindset, but we haven't seen it yet. So
exactly. All right. So I'm going to run down all the playoff clinching dates from the Royals postseason history, but then I want to ask both of y'all, how close is your hand to the postseason panic button? So go ahead and think on that while I'm running these down. So the Royals have made the postseason 9 times in their franchise history. First time in 76, they clinched it in game number 160 on October 1st. 77, they clinched it in game number 151 on September 23rd. 78, game number 158 on September 26th. 1980, which is a very good Royals team, they clinched it on game number 145 all the way in September 17th. The 81 Royals, now granted, this was the strike shortened year, so take that with a grain of salt. They clinched it on September 30th. And then the 84 Royals, they clinched it in game number 160. The 85 Royals, the World Series winning team, did not clinch it until game number 161 on October 5th. The 2014 Royals did not clinch their postseason berth until game number 160 on September 26th. And then the 2015 Royals did not clinch it until game number 154 on September 24th. We're sitting here right now on September 22nd with 7 games left to go. Max, I'm going to start off with you. How close is your hand to that postseason panic button?
I mean, like the first couple games of this, I was like, relax, everyone. And I think I even tweeted that. I said, relax. They're still in a really good position. It just takes a win here to kind of turn things around. And now I'm like, yeah, you can get the panic button out. Like they're still in a good position. You'd rather be up than down, but you also need to win games. And look, it's kind of frustrating because like the other teams in the playoff hunt, I mean, it's good and bad, I guess. They're not winning either. Like the Orioles are slumping, the Twins are definitely slumping, and so like the Royals could have played their way into a home series possibly if they had played well the last week, but that those other teams are not playing well is giving the Royals a little more leeway to also be not very good. So the fact that other teams aren't playing well gives me a little more faith that the Royals can at least stick it out. And look, the Nationals aren't a very good team. They just demoted one of their better players, CJ Abrams, for being out at a casino all night. He's out for the year. They're feisty. I mean, they're a team that's going to run and kind of make things look difficult for you, but they've been a bad team all year. But you got to go out and win those games. I mean, the Royals aren't playing very well against a not very good Giants team either. So, they need to turn things around. They need to get a couple wins here, and I'll feel a little bit better about them backsliding into the playoffs.
Okay. Jeremy, what about you? How close is your hand?
I refuse to press the panic button, no matter how panicked I actually feel, until the Royals are no longer in possession of a playoff spot. They still hold a playoff spot. There is a scenario, an unlikely scenario, but a lot of what we're seeing right now is unlikely. A scenario where the Royals lose every single remaining game and still go to the playoffs. That could happen because of where they are right now.
That is true.
I don't want that to happen. No one wants that to happen, like the Royals. But it could happen. The Royals don't have to necessarily win another game to make the playoffs, as long as the Twins keep losing, which they seem content to do. So I'm not going to panic until then. I do think it's interesting. Max says that it's better to be in than out. I agree with Max on that. But also, I do wonder if fans would feel so much better. And I said this a couple weeks ago, I think, when they were going through their last winning streak. If the Royals were on the outside looking in and they're like, they're so close, they could just get, they're so close. And instead they're like, oh, they're about to lose it. And it just flips things around and makes the emotions feel different, I think. But so I'm not.
That would change the team mindset too, I think. Like I think they're probably thinking like, we're going to blow it instead of like, oh, if we play a little bit better, we can make it.
Yeah. Absolutely a thing. So yeah, I refuse to press that panic button until the Royals do not have a playoff spot anymore.
Okay.
The other thing that kind of gives me concern is the Tigers end the season against the White Sox. So that's like two, maybe
why
three.
I'm looking at the Twins right now. I'm like, what are you guys doing over there?
Yeah, and the Twins play the Marlins, who are not as bad as the White Sox, but aren't very good.
No one's as bad as the White Sox.
Yeah.
And today's action is going to be very big for the standings because if I recall correctly, the Twins have a doubleheader against the Boston Red Sox.
Unfortunately, it's against the Red Sox without Devers.
So that's not very fun. That Tigers schedule, like this Orioles series was kind of going to be the one that I was looking at. Like maybe this could be the one to push them out of postseason picture, but now they've split. Now they're going for the series win today, so we'll see what happens. I ain't gonna lie to you. My hand's hovering above the button. I pulled the button out on my desk probably about 2 games ago, and just with I thought introspectively about how am I feeling with these runs getting scored against the Royals. Like once it hit 3-0, I was like, well, they've lost. It's over. And then once it hit, what was it? I think it was like 4-0. I was like, yeah, that's really that's it. Go ahead, put up that recap. It's over now. So
it felt like 9-0 already. Even
By the time it was 4-0, it was 9-0. It was crazy because I was sitting there. I was ready to start writing the recap, and then the 3-run home run. I'm like, okay, yeah, no. I was like, should I? Nope. Okay, fine. I'm good.
Yep. Just put up the story on royalsreview.com, let the comment section go crazy, and we'll all write itself.
I'm not even pretending like I'm going to check that comment section. I don't need that.
Nope, don't need that in your life. So my hand's hovering above it. I'm not saying it's touching it, but it's pretty damn close to getting pushed right now. And Jeremy, Paul reading off the odds today compared to this time last week really just solidifies that.
Compared to yesterday, honestly, because I double-checked the odds yesterday for the article I'm reviewing the postseason roster. I'm going to continue to wishcast this. I wishcast this whole season by saying I wanted Cole Reagans to win Cy Young. I wanted Bobby to win MVP. I said the Royals were going to win more games than they lost. I was the only person who thought the Royals could win more games than they lost out of the Royals review writers, which is not a criticism of anyone. It's just that's what it was. And it wasn't because I truly believed it. It's because I wanted to believe it. And I'm like, well, if I'm going to be wrong, I'd rather be wrong in hope. So I'm going to continue to just keep writing this stuff and saying this stuff that, yeah, the Royals are going to make it. It's going to be fine because I don't know what else to do. I also want to throw out there, Minda Haas-Kuhlman, Royals review writer, posted on Twitter today saying that today's the day. The Royals are going to break out of their slump. They're going to win. Everything's going to be fine. So I'm down for that. I also retweeted, and I don't know if this is going up before the game today, that I remember last year when Trey Turner was he was playing awful. He had a 77 WRC plus, and the Phillies got together and said, let's give this guy a standing ovation before all of his at-bats, and let's see what happens. He had a 1 WRC plus for the rest of the year. Oh, fan support can go a long way. I know I've seen some people out there who are like, I can't believe no one at Kauffman is booing this terrible team. Well, maybe instead of booing, let's try doing some extra cheering, I think. Maybe some extra support. Tell them, we still love them, even when they're not quite where we want them to be. Maybe that'll help. I don't know. I'm usually a guy who's like, let's be nice to people. Let's be positive rather than telling them how mad we are.
It can't hurt at this point. That's what we're looking at. Max, any other points over the Major League Club before we move on?
Just the saving grace is that there are two teams chasing the Royals, and so there's two spots for three teams. So it's like not only do the Twins have to pass us, but the Tigers do too for us to miss the playoffs entirely. And so can both of those teams? And there's not much time left, and I know there's only a couple game lead on those teams, but they'd have to play well down the last week as well. And, the odds of both teams playing well and us not playing well, are still not, they're not small, but, it's not like a given that the Twins and Tigers are going to pass us.
Yeah, even with the dive in odds, the Royals are they're more likely to make the playoffs right now based on all of the projections from those three websites than they are to not. Even after the precipitous fall. So again, it's not a guarantee of anything, but the Royals are still in good position.
That they are. If you want to go talk about it with other Royals fans, go do so on royalsreview.com. You can also follow Royals Review on Twitter and Facebook at Royals Review. All right, so Friday night was Futures Night at Kauffman Stadium, so it feels appropriate to rattle off the Royals Organizational Award winners. Blake Mitchell, the man who many fans out there were saying was a bust, should get J.J. Piccolo fired. He was the George Brett Hitter of the Year after nearly having a 2020 season at his age 19 season. Right-handed pitcher Steven Zobak was the Paul Splittorff Pitcher of the Year. He spent most of the year with AA Northwest Arkansas. Outfielder Carson Rockefort was the Frank White Defensive Player of the Year, playing, I think, more than 1,000 innings in center field for the Quad Cities River Bandits with just stellar numbers. Really, really good, productive guy there in center field. Tyler Tolbert was once again the Willie Wilson Base Running Player of the Year. If I recall correctly from the broadcast, he's won one of these organizational awards every single year that he's been in the Royals organization. So that's pretty cool. And then we also have Javier Vaz, who won the Mike Sweeney Community Award. Infielder Austin Charles winning the Alex Gordon Heart and Hustle Award. And then lastly, Scott Melvin winning the Art Stewart Scouting award for the year. So congratulations to all those folks. I saw Blake Mitchell getting interviewed in Friday night's broadcast. I was like, he has gotten big. Like, he has been hitting the weight room. He is looking every bit like the number 2 prospect in this system. Jeremy, as I'm rattling off those names, are you excited about any of those guys? I know you're not really a prospect savant, but just want to get your thoughts.
Blake Mitchell, he looked good this year.
He did.
And I don't just mean physically, though. He's got a very nice beard. The dude, he was hitting all over the place. And I'm very excited to see what he can do maybe in some AA action next year.
Hopefully so. Max, I know you've been keeping tabs on the farm system as a whole. Are you excited by any one of those names in particular?
I like Zobach a lot. I think he's a guy that could. I think his future is probably a reliever, but I think he could be like a closer. I think his stuff is that good. He's kind of. I think he's a guy that could be like competing for a bullpen role like next year. Maybe not at the beginning of the season, but midseason. He's kind of interesting. I mean, but Mitchell is nice to see him kind of to hit a little bit this year. He did hit like 230 with 30% strikeout rate, which is kind of the red flags to his game. But the speed and the power from the catcher position is nice. It's interesting. I saw him interviewed at Kauffman Stadium, and he's well aware of the criticisms of getting a high school catcher drafted in the first round. And I think that he carries that as a chip on his shoulder a little bit, which is kind of a nice, I guess, good way to motivate yourself. I do think a little bit too much was made of that, and I'm part of that. I mean, I wrote something about like how high school catchers are risky, and if he had been an outfielder, you wouldn't have been a surprise. No one would have batted an eye about that, which could be where he ends up. I haven't heard too many reports on his defense yet, but if he hits, usually you see guys kind of moved off the catcher position, but we'll see. So it's nice to see him hitting. I think he's still kind of a long way from the big leagues. He'll need to cut down on the strikeouts, but he certainly has athleticism, and like Jeremy said, he looks like he's a professional athlete. He's kind of bulked up a little bit.
Yeah, always good stuff to hear. Yeah, Zobach, I think he's the most interesting out of all of those because he did start in the bullpen in 2023 for the Columbia Fireflies, and then they transitioned him into the rotation, and that's where he's been ever since. But when he was coming out of the bullpen, I want to say like there was an 8-game stretch where he was just dominant. Like he was striking out every single batter he faced. It was some really, really good stuff from him. So very excited to see what he can do in 2025 and beyond. All right, Jeremy, is there anything I'm missing, friend? I usually do, but I think we kind of hit all the wickets because this has just been a really down weekend and week for Royals baseball, unfortunately.
Just missing a Royals win. That's all we're missing.
Yeah, isn't that the truth? Max, is there anything else regarding this team that you think we should talk about?
I just want to touch upon like the bullpen a little bit. Like it's been solid the last month. It's 3.92 ERA in September. And maybe that's because like they haven't had to rely on the bullpen as much because they're losing. But they Carlos Hernandez looked kind of those last couple outings looked kind of spicy until I guess he got blown up Saturday.
Yeah, he didn't have a good one last night,
right? So a little inconsistency there, but he had a couple outings where it was like, whoa, hey, what's going on here? You look
Angel Zerpa looks like he's fully back.
Zerpa looks good. Daniel Lynch looks like he could be a reliever. So I feel a little bit better about the bullpen now, strangely. It just sucks that it hasn't really mattered because the offense stinks so much.
Yeah, isn't that the truth? Hopefully, that's one thing that I am looking forward to, however the season ends, is actually being able to look at how a group is performing as a whole. Instead of like, well, I'm not feeling good about the bullpen right now after those home runs, but it's hard to deny ahead of yesterday. I was looking statistically, the Royals bullpen was like a top 7 bullpen in all of baseball for the month of September. So that has been we're quick to criticize. What'd you say?
They had the fourth best strikeout rate in the month of September.
Yeah, see, there you go. We are quick to criticize and slow to praise as humans. All right, let's go ahead and get on to our Royals reviews. Get on out of here. Max, it's been a while since you've done these. Do you remember what this is?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, reviewing our faves from the week. And I have one ready too. So
let's go.
Yeah, so I've been trying to read more just to become an educated person, but I wanted to read more fiction because I usually read nonfiction. So I don't know how I stumbled upon it, but I'm reading Andy Weir's. I just finished it. Andy Weir's Project Hail Mary, and I didn't even know Andy Weir is the author of The Martian, which got turned into the Matt Damon movie. But it was a fantastic read. It's very science based. It's science fiction, so it's a an alien invasion, but kind of much more mundane than you would think. And it's very science based and seems very realistic. And so a crew is sent to the nearest star system to find a solution. And it follows one of the reluctant astronauts on this mission. And everything he does is like kind of explained scientifically, which for some people, maybe that's a little tedious, but I found it fascinating. It moves pretty quick too. And it's a real page turner. And the ending, it wasn't like a huge twist, but I didn't see it coming, and it very much tickled me. So I highly recommend Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir.
Okay, all right, I like it. Jeremy, I'm gonna save yours for last just because I got a quick one. It's been years since I've read manga. It really has, and I went with the safe one. The anime's gotten a lot of great reviews. Attack on Titan. I picked up
Safe.
volume
I
one.
don't know. I don't think I can call that safe, but go ahead.
Safe for quality is what I would.
Okay.
Yeah. Listen, we have very different tastes in this field, Jeremy.
We'll talk more later.
All right, there you go. Yeah, definitely not one that I would recommend for children. It's a very, very heavy manga, but basically what it is it's humanity's fight for survival against these titans, which are just massive, giant monsters that are humanoid in nature, but have some interesting origins. I know some of the loose plot points later on in the anime, but this is like I'm actually just reading it and I'm going to enjoy it. So far, so good. Nice, easy read. So go check out Attack on Titan if you're looking for something like that. Jeremy, on to you.
So I didn't watch Wednesday's game because I had a friend over and we were watching a movie instead. And that movie was Live, Die, Repeat, or Edge of Tomorrow, depending on who and when you ask. It might even sometimes have been known Live, Die, Repeat, The Edge of Tomorrow, or something like that. It's a Tom Cruise movie, science fiction, alien invasion has occurred on Earth, and the humans are trying to fight it back. And Tom Cruise gets accidentally stuck in a time loop. So Groundhog Day meets Alien kind of sort of thing happening there. And he goes from being this PR guy for the military to a guy who the world is relying on to train himself up to be a super fighter so that he can save all of humanity from the alien invasion that is going to destroy the planet tomorrow if he can't get it together. It was actually really, really fun. It's kind of a summer blockbuster movie. I don't understand the business stuff necessarily of movies, but it didn't do as well as they wanted it to, and as well as I think it should have, because it's not a perfect movie, but it's a very solid, very good movie. I was talking to my friend and I said I would give that at least an 8 out of 10. Just a lot of really, really cool creature design, a lot of really good drama, a lot of really good humor, mixes emotions in all over the place in a really interesting way, and it does some really cool twists, but everything, like, you don't see any of it coming in a really good way, but you also, like, when you see it, you're like, oh, well, that makes sense. And the pacing was, especially, I've gotten used to in recent years, pacing in movies just being awful. I didn't realize how old Edge of Tomorrow was. It's like 10 years old now. But the pacing of recent movies just feels like it can be really, really uneven. And the pacing of this movie was just flat on the entire time. It was really a fantastic movie watching experience. If you're a little tired of kind of the modern blockbuster that what MCU has kind of done to us, and believe me, I'm an MCU mark, but that it's not good movie. It's not good movie making anymore. You can go back and watch this and be like, oh, that's what it felt like to watch like a really solid action movie.
Fair enough. So yeah, that's Edge of Tomorrow. It's been a long time since I watched that movie, Jeremy. It really is. Alrighty, folks, let's go ahead and get on out of here. This is usually where I plug social media accounts and stuff like that. But Max, you're just at Royals Review now, right? Like, that is, you don't have a personal Twitter account, right?
Yep. If you want to hit me up at Royals Review, or I'm usually in the comments at royalsreview.com.
There you go. That's a good spot to find it. You can find Jeremy and myself's links down in the podcast description below. But of course, if you want to stay up to date on all things Royals, the best place to do that is over at royalsreview.com. I am Jacob Milham. He is Jeremy Greco. Max, thank you so much for joining us this morning. And until next time, go Royals!